Ukraine is currently employing 3 drones primarily against Russia. Whether it's destroying enemy troops and armored vehicles, analyzing critical damage, or producing targeting information for allied artillery, Ukraine has used drones to great effect. The Ukrainian military has deployed unmanned systems to deploy anti-tank missiles, transport bomblets, and conduct intelligence, espionage, and reconnaissance. Successful combat attacks have been published on social media to show the world that Ukraine has grasped unmanned flight. Let's examine these 3 drones more closely to determine how effective they are. The 3 best remotely piloted craft which Ukraine is using in the fight are listed below. Number 3. Punisher Drone. As the war with Russia drags on, Ukraine has unleashed the lethal Punisher drones which have successfully completed many missions. It's been used to disrupt Russia's supply lines by blasting along convoys and targeting ammo dumps. It can allegedly fly up to 30 kilometers within hostile territory. With a wingspan of 7.5 feet and a maximum altitude of 1,300 feet, the drones fly practically undetected. The Punisher's flight route is automated and it's fed by the Spectre, a companion drone that assists in reconnaissance and target identification. The drone was apparently designed by UA Dynamics, a company made up of veterans who battled in the 2014 Crimea struggle against Russia. Punisher drones are medium-sized drones manufactured in Ukraine that can attack 3 targets in one go. They're being employed to disrupt Russian supply lines, weaponry and supply depots, as well as command and control centers. After recuperation and rearming, they may be launched and back in the air in 7 minutes. It only travels at 44 miles per hour, but its 29-mile range allows it to infiltrate behind enemy lines. With a 4.4-pound bomb payload, the Punisher operates at 1,300 feet altitude for 3-hour sorties. The Punisher falls between the TB2 and the Switchable in terms of size. However, the 7.5-foot-long Punisher has a flaw. The technology is more complicated to operate since it depends on some other drone term, the Spectre, to give it targeting data. Nonetheless, it is fire and forget, automatically charting its way to the enemy position after obtaining GPS location details from the Spectre. Number 2. Switchblade Kamikaze Drones. The very next drone is noted for its suicide propensity, or kamikaze. Switchblade is a well-named weapon. These tactical drones, also known as loitering weapons, can be concealed in rucksacks and launched into the air by troops. There are 2 separate models with different missions. The 300 is smaller and designed for anti-personnel strikes, whereas the 600 is larger and designed to destroy tanks and armored vehicles. Switchblade 600 costs roughly $6,000 per unit. The Switchblade is an explosive-filled flying camera robot. These all-electric weaponries are designed to aid in the detection and attack of nearby enemy rather than far-off foes. The Switchblade 300 and Switchblade 600 are the 2 sizes available. Both can be carried by one man, though the margin of difference is significant. The 300 is only 5.5 pounds and fits easily into a backpack. The 600 is larger, with the missile weighing 33 pounds and the transport components weighing substantially more. The Switchblade 300 can fly for 15 minutes and engage target at a radius of just over 6 miles. The 600 has a range of 25 miles and takes 40 minutes to fly. The Switchblade has cameras, and the Switchblade is guided by video from these sensors, along with GPS data and image processing. The Switchblade can also receive targeting data from other drones, enabling it to track and locate specific targets. As a result, it's just one of several weapons that can be aimed at a target using targeting data provided through other drones. 2. Bayraktar TB2. The first drone that comes to mind is the Bayraktar TB2 from the Turkish defense contractor Baykar. The Bayraktar TB2 is a medium-altitude, long-endurance or male tactical unmanned aerial vehicle capable of ISR and armed strike missions. With a full aviation system on board, the 21-foot TB2 can take off and land on its own. It can fly for up to 27 hours at 18,000 to 25,000 feet. It has a 185-mile range. The TB2 features an autopilot mode and its own sensors, so it isn't completely reliant on GPS. The TB2 is equipped with 4 laser-guided smart micro-munition missiles. Its radar cross-section is smaller, helping it to get past Russian air defenses. If you've liked what you've seen so far, make sure to subscribe. As we move on, what are the updates on the Russia-Ukraine war? After hundreds surrendered and were carried to Russian-controlled territory, the situation of Ukrainian defenders of Mariupol's Azovstal steel complex remained uncertain on Tuesday. Russia announced on Tuesday that 265 Ukrainian fighters had surrendered from an encircled final stronghold in the steel plant just hours after Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky announced that the mission to defend the facility has ended and that several fighters had been relocated to Russian territory. 51 of those who surrendered were critically wounded, according to Russia's defense minister, and were transferred to a hospital in Novoazovsk in the Russian-backed separatist Donetsk province. Their fate was still unknown, while Ukrainian Deputy Defense Minister Hanna Maliar stated that an exchange procedure for their return home will take place. Zelensky warned that the work of returning the boys home requires delicacy and patience. The Russian parliament speaker has stated that the exchange of Russian prisoners of war for seized members of Ukraine's Azov regiment will be considered. Speaker of the State Duma Vyacheslav Volodin described its members as Nazi criminals who should not be included with prisoner exchanges. They are war criminals, he continued, and we must do everything that we can to bring them to justice. He had asked the defense and security committees to draft a directive to that effect, according to the Duma website. One of Russia's negotiators in the delayed peace negotiations with Ukraine, legislator Leonid Slutsky, labeled the evacuated militants animals in human form and urged they should be executed. After the horrible crimes against humanity that they have perpetrated and continue to commit against our inmates, they don't deserve to live, he stated. Dmitry Peskov, a Kremlin spokesman, stated simply that President Vladimir Putin had promised that surrendered fighters would be treated in accordance with international standards. The capitulation occurred as Russia's war in Ukraine's most catastrophic siege came to an end, following weeks of brutal urban combat that had left much of Mariupol, a strategic port city bordering Russia and Russia-annexed Crimea, in ruins. As Russia seized control of the city, hundreds of Ukrainian citizens and fighters, including many from the Azov regiment, sought sanctuary in the Azovstal Works, a massive Soviet-era factory built under Joseph Stalin, is equipped with a maze of bunkers and passages to withstand a nuclear strike. After the United Nations and the International Committee of the Red Cross struck a settlement with Russia and Ukraine, the majority of civilians in the plant were rescued in recent weeks. Moscow has portrayed the Azov regiment as being one of the major offenders of purported extremist anti-Russian nationalism and suspected Nazism, from which it claims Ukraine's Russian speakers must be protected. The Azov regiment, which had been founded in 2014 to combat Russian-backed rebels who had gained hold of portions of the Donbass, has been recognized and absorbed into Ukraine's National Guard, according to Ukrainian officials. All of the Azovstal plant's defenders have been dubbed heroes of our time by Ukraine's military command. On Tuesday, Ukrainian President Advisor Mikhailo Podolyak praised the defenders of Mariupol who resisted Russian advances for 82 days, saying the fighting thwarted Russian attempts to conquer Ukraine's south and east and change the war's direction. On Tuesday, it wasn't known how many fighters stayed at the factory, if any. While capturing Mariupol in its entirety would be Russia's biggest success of the conflict, the offensive has stalled elsewhere. Russian troops near Kharkiv, Ukraine's second-largest city, have just begun retreating at the fastest rate since Russian forces were pushed out of the capital, Kyiv's north, and suburbs at the end of March. Watch the video on the screen if you want to know more about drone strikes and how they are legitimate in the eyes of the public. If you enjoyed this video, then don't forget to subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon to never miss an update from us.